So in this video, I'll show how to use the kernel in order to include firmware directly in the built-in image. It's a very bad idea in general, but this video will be shorter, so I'll just show the mechanism. I will clean up things from the previous videos to make sure we include only the firmware files that we really need, and we'll call it a day with it. So the configuration that is interesting for us is config extra firmware, and it needs config firmware loader basically. So of course config firmware loader exists, otherwise we wouldn't be able to load firmware. But another thing that we need is to provide a directory for it to look for the extra firmware. If it's lib firmware, then the kernel is happy with it. Otherwise, we need to actually provide it extra firmware dir. Okay, so these are the two things that we would care about. And this is extra firmware dir. Okay, so what we're going to start with is actually go ahead and give it the firmware dir that we were using here, which is Linux firmware. So this is easier to satisfy. And so it's this one. Firmware blobs root directory, that's fine. We do want that. And we want to look at extra. Yeah, so I made a mistake here. It's not what I wanted. What I wanted is to set this one. Okay. So this is what I wanted to do, and the other one I will populate it with spaces. Okay. So first, let's do some cleanups. So we did do cleanups before in the previous video of the Bluetooth, and we can allow ourselves to also make cleanups in the other things. So I'll also copy this RTW to root. This is on my target. And I'll go to RTW, and I think I can remove most of them. So let's remove W87, all of them. And let's do the message grep 88. So it loaded. This is when we had like the errors, but then there will be something with other. So sooner or later. So this is for Bluetooth and RTL again Bluetooth. So I think this is what it loads here. So let's just see. 8821. Yeah, so it will load this one. So I'll move this to the other directory. I just want to minimize things so that I specify exactly what I need. We want to minimize things and not like maximize things. So I'll remove everything here, and then I'll move RTW this one here. Okay. So I'll do this. I'll take out, oh, it's already been taken out, the dongle. I'll put it back in, and the console message should go here if I'm not mistaken. They do. And it seems like we're in business. Okay. So that's good. We're good. So the idea here is that if I go to lib firmware, then I have these two fellows. And you know what I will do? I will go ahead and take this, and I will scp them lib firmware 210 and 022 TMP. I'll copy them to my host. I mean, usually when I use like the pre-built firmware, which I haven't done since forever, to be honest, then I'll just put everything like in a very specific place and then like copy them out. But now we have like subfolders, and we need to be more specific, and we're going to go ahead and do just that. So I copied it to my machine under temp. Oops, wrong user. Yeah, we have similar names here. Good. So we have this, and now let's go and build them. Okay. So for the firmware blobs, what I want to have, I did take it from my own kernel, right? So I want to have RTW CFW bin. This is what I want to have. And I want to have the other two as well. I want to have the Bluetooth one, and I want to have the config one. So I do your OK. First, we just want to see if it even built, right? So that's what I'm doing here. Let's do another diff config. These are the things that we modified here. And let's build. Now, it's just including some more things. It will either work or not. So let's build it. If it fails, it will fail super fast. And look what it tells us here. Like, so it has like, okay, built-in RTW 88, blah, 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 blah. So it has like this include binary thing here. You can recognize it if you went to a security class with me, like from the certificates and so on. But yeah, I mean, this is how it looks like. It looks like ink bin, and then it's just going to find itself back into the kernel. So we have this, okay, and let's see if it serves us, okay. So we will go now, and I will do the following. These were our firmware files, right? And we will cheat. We will make the root backup firmware. I'm not just touching like the Alpine. That's not my idea. And I will just move firmware, everything there to backup. Okay. So if I now like either reboot or take on and off like the device, it should not be able to load firmware. Okay, so that's fine for me. I will now reboot the kernel, and let's see what's happening here. So surprise, surprise, it is loading them. Let's see if it loaded everything. So this is like Bluetooth. I told you, like it loads late. But what about like the Wi-Fi one? So this is where the Wi-Fi one was. Okay. And if I look at things, sorry, IPA is definitely not my login. And if I look at it, then we're done. And since the kernel was very fast to build, we can now go and undo what we did. So let's copy config old into config. Okay. But just for fun, let's copy config to built-in. Okay. And I'll move config old to config. I'll make again, just to prove it, okay? Just to prove that that without it, it will not work. So I will now go ahead. I'll shut down it. I'll shut it down. It already built. we will run the kernel and we should be seeing warnings, only that it still has it. So what went wrong here? So either it knows how to handle it because of like lib firmware still has it, and no, it doesn't have it. Or like the kernel image, it's like it happens like with the RAM disk. Like if you don't build it like properly, then you might have some problems. So let's look at our build config. Let's look at our diff config, and essentially let's also see if we have like the config. The config is not set. We should not have a problem. What we can say is that we can see like this binary including that I mentioned earlier. We can see that this is how it's being incorporated. And even if the file exists, it doesn't mean it will get packaged. What we need to look at is the config that we are going to set. So you have all kind of like steps that happened here, okay? And one of them, if there is a tool called make syncconfig. There are other tools that you can use, but when you do syncconfig, not syncconfig, this was a mistake, syncconfig. Then essentially it can go and maybe do some additional things for you. Okay, generating make file is one thing, okay, it doesn't really matter. But when you do that, and it pretty much tells it, hey, like the configuration data got updated, you would want to go and rebuild some of the things here. Okay, so this is what's being done here. You will usually not need to use it like ever, but now we did this. We're going to rerun our kernel. Before I remind you, it loaded the firmware file. Now we got rid of them, and now we can see that the Bluetooth loading firmware fails, and the other it fails to pro, but somewhere it fails to load firmware. So we know very well now what's going on. We proved that we can load firmware into the kernel, and we also proved that we can do the other thing. And I did save the file, so I'll just copy it again, and I'll prove you that once I build with it, then it's all good. So I'll copy it to config. I'll even follow what I just said, although it's not necessary when I have like the old config. I'll make, what did I do? And then I will reboot it, and then I will, I still not reboot it, and then I will have, you know, like a Wi-Fi interface again, and a Bluetooth again, and everything will be fine, and everybody will be happy all over again. So you can see like a driver space, built-in, so on. You can look like at the archive, you can see how they look. They take like a, I mean, the system knows what it's doing. So I'm done with this. This is why I like using this system. It's so fast to test things. It's not just because I wrote it. And there we go. And we have the same thing. Okay. Bluetooth, I need to start the service probably. Let's see. HCI. Maybe I did not copy the firmware. This is also possible. No, but it is here. So it stopped. Why? I need to enable it to stop. So I'll start it. I'll do Bluetooth control. Now it works. Wi-Fi works. Everything works. We can be happy, and we proved that we can build firmware into the Linux kernel built-in itself. And we also proved that if we take it off, then it's not there. And we also saw some things when you try to play with config file, not go through like make menu config or not doing things organized, that can be solved like with a make sync config. So this wraps it up. We now have all kind of methodologies and approaches to include a driver that also has firmware in the kernel. We can use it as a built-in, only the driver, and then firmware load it in user space. And then we need to make sure that we control like the order. If it's USB, we can plug and back and forth. Not so it's not a big deal. We can prevent it by one of two ways. One, having loadable kernel modules and making sure that the drivers are loadable kernel modules, and then mod prop is being done properly. We will need, in this case, to know what we're doing and to include only the models that we need in an embedded Linux. Otherwise, we already saw that models can be over gigs if we just build everything. And another thing, if you're very specific and we do want it to be built in, we can also put the firmware as part of the built-in kernel. It's usually not recommended, but now I showed you how it makes things simpler. And just a little hint, like once you already know that things work well, and you know exactly what firmware you need, I deleted the files to prove that this is exactly the firmware that I need. But maybe you don't know this. So if you know exactly what you need, if you know exactly how to enable it, then you can put it in the firmware, in the kernel, and then you don't need to worry too much about loading orders and so on. The kernel loads the firmware, and that's it. You're done. So we covered all of these methods. I think it's useful. It's really useful to know what to choose when, but this is experience and real world. So thank you for watching and have a good day or have a good night.